Last week, at the end of episode 73, I teased that I have a potential disagreement with the money guys, and this disagreement revolves around the emergency fund. Most experts are going to tell you to have 3 to 6 months of your expenses saved up in your fully funded emergency fund. And I'm no exception. That's what we covered for HopeFilled Financial Footstep number 4. But once you hit retirement, does the emergency fund need to change? Well, the money guys said you expand your emergency fund to 1 year, 18 months, maybe even 24 months, 2 whole years worth of expenses. And there's a reason for that. That's what we're going to cover in the main topic. But the money guys were not the first place that I heard about the bucket strategy. The first time I heard about the bucket strategy was 4 years ago when I was taking Dave Ramsey's Financial Coach Master Training. Now, some of the HopeFilled Financial followers have been asking me what was it like to go through Dave Ramsey's relatively expensive master training to become a financial coach. It's pretty clear on my website that I went through the class. So back in 2020, right before the plague shut everything down, I was on YouTube, sort of looking around, and it was right after I started getting some questions at work about personal finance. And I started thinking that this would be something I would like to do, that a financial tutoring or coaching outlet for me would be a good way to serve people. It would be very rewarding and it would tap into my natural talents. Well, as I was thinking this, YouTube fed me an ad for Dave Ramsey's Financial Coach Master Training. At the time, I was all in on the Dave Ramsey plan. I had drank the Kool-Aid. I had taken the foundations curriculum as a homeschooled kid. We've talked about that. And I remember telling my wife that I wanted to try this whole financial coach thing, and maybe taking the training, Dave Ramsey's program, would be a good way for me to learn how to step into this area, step into a field, at least as a passion project, where I could help people. She thought that was a great idea. And without her encouragement, I probably wouldn't have jumped into starting HopeFilled Financial Coaching as fast as I did. Without taking the Financial Coach Master Training, I probably wouldn't have. It was sort of an investment in a push to commit myself to running HopeFilled and being your one and only HopeFilled Financial Coach. With that said, when I took Financial Coach Master Training, it was primarily a series of videos that were recorded by Chris Hogan doing the class in person at the Ramsey Solutions campus. This is before he was let go from Ramsey Solutions. This was before the whole controversy, so he was still a mainline Ramsey Solutions personality. So in going through Financial Coach Master Training, you would watch videos of Chris teaching the class in person, going through slides, and telling you what it's like to be a financial coach. The first portion of it, from what I documented in my notes, involved what it's like to listen to someone else's problems with personal finance, listen to someone else's goals with personal finance, and how to break them down into different categories before providing recommendations that can help lead the client to change. There's a big emphasis on you not being the hero in your client's story if you're a financial coach. The whole role of the financial coach is the interesting person that they meet on the side of the road at the beginning of a journey who says it's dangerous to go alone. I need you to take this wisdom with you as you go and you conquer your story. The client is the hero, and you are simply a sage advisor or a coach or a friend. You are not Frodo. You are Sam, encouraging Frodo along the way to complete his hero's journey.
Sam, I'm glad you're with me.
Anyway, this was really helpful to kind of get a healthy mentality for coaching, and also to be given a general structure for pricing and how they recommend that you go about running a coaching business for starters. I do recall that they discouraged you from getting a website all sorted out. At the time, I'm pretty sure they were working on setting up a website tool so that if you subscribed to the monthly payment system, the Ramsey Preferred Coaching Program, after the fact, that you could get the website through that and sort of have a reason to keep paying in monthly for that website. Even though at the time that website tool was not fleshed out very well, I did get to see a little bit of it because I joined the Ramsey Preferred Coaching Program for a brief period of time, but it wasn't anything compared to what I could do through a website builder. There was a little bit about branding and marketing, and that did help inspire me as I was working on what HopeFilled Financial Coaching is today. But I don't know if it was necessarily fully essential. Other than that, the bulk of the class was like Financial Peace University on steroids. You really dove deeper into the topics and you talked more about the actionable items and some of the finer details that just can't be covered in a 9-week class that's designed for a general audience. With the exception of retirement, looking back at my notes, I have 2 pages that covered retirement. It's interesting, there's a quote from the session I took on April 4th of 2020. It was from section 11.3. It says, good retirement planning involves 2 things, time and money, duh. And a quote, a dream without a plan is a wish. I think that's a brilliant quote. I think that's another way of saying begin your plan with the end in mind. Because if you don't have something to aim at for the end of your plan, you don't have a goal, then all you have is a wish for something more than this. Now, in addition to the videos where I watched Chris Hogan and I took notes, there were little quizzes at the end of each section. And after an entire unit, you would have a Zoom meeting, basically with other individuals who were taking the training with you online. And there was a facilitator who would answer questions and facilitate group conversation. But there were some particular details that I felt were lacking. Like, how do I convert the nest egg into income? The whole basis for my disagreement with Dave Ramsey on the 8% stuff. And it was really around this time that the seed was planted for me to pursue a good answer here. In the breakout session that followed the unit on retirement, I remember specifically asking the individual from Ramsey Solutions who was coordinating the call, I want to know how to safely turn retirement nest egg monies into income without running out, because I've been reading up on it. And I don't know if there is a definitive direction from Ramsey Solutions that we can take as inspiration for our coaching practice. And they simply said, well, the best approach that we know here, and I don't know if he was speaking just from himself, if he was speaking from other people in the Financial Coach Master Training team, or what, because it's clearly not something that I've heard from Dave. He said what you do is you take your emergency fund and you boost it once you hit retirement to a year or 18 months or 24 months worth of expenses, so that if the market has a downturn, you can live off of the cash while the market recovers, i.e. the 2-bucket strategy. I have it in my notes right here that this emergency fund becomes structured in the case of a recession. That was the whole purpose of this answer. Now, I found this answer at the time satisfying. I was like, that's the answer. If I have a client who rolls around with this sort of question, I have an answer. But after mulling it over, I realized that just taking someone's word at face value without being able to substantiate it was not something that I could do as a coach. I don't want to share anything with you unless I feel like I definitively understand it, unless I feel like it's something that is worth your time to dig into. So I started reading up on the 2-bucket strategy, on an emergency fund that is used in the case of a recession after you retire. And I kept finding conflicting information. I found that it's a very popular strategy, but I didn't find consensus on whether or not it worked well. And I decided that the best way for me to understand it would be to build a model, a retirement model, to successfully grasp how distribution strategies can affect your odds of running out of money. That way you could get a good educational grasp around how good a particular strategy is at cushioning you from sequence of returns risk. So I taught myself how to build Monte Carlo simulations in Excel and went whole hog on this ridiculous spreadsheet model that utilized the bucket strategy. I was pretty sure this was the answer. And I remember that all the solutions, all the statistics I was getting out of this spreadsheet were utter garbage. It's not that the way that I built the model was poor. It's not that my assumptions were poor. It's that the model for the bucket strategy was not yielding any fruitful results that I felt like I could use relative to a flat, safe withdrawal rate. I didn't quite finish the full study back then when it came to the bucket strategy. I simply threw it out the window in lieu of what I've already shared with you on the podcast before, a financial guardrail approach. I found that a flat safe withdrawal rate can work if it's low enough, and that 8% was too aggressive because it was around this time that I had discovered Dave Ramsey saying 8%, trying to learn more about this topic. And I had decided that the bucket strategy didn't have enough of a benefit to really pursue any further. But since I started the podcast, I've been getting questions about it. Is the bucket strategy actually viable? And since I've gotten better at building these spreadsheet models, I figured it might actually be interesting to try to finish what I started 4 years ago so I could share it with you and we can explore together if the bucket strategy has anything to stand on.